Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica and I'm your host, and you can follow me on Twitter at @itchchesino. So yeah, Ben White is now officially an Arsenal player. I just want to ask you guys, like, what is the big deal about the announcement? Like, we already knew that he was an Arsenal player essentially. So like, why is everybody freaking out about having to see it on the website? It's a little weird. It's a little weird for me, honestly, but yeah, announced today. Good. One more signing down. And feeling good about it. You guys know, originally I was like, what is the big deal about this Ben White guy? I had to do my research. Obviously, George and Souls did a good job convincing me, and I am happy about the signing. Ultimately, we did need to replace David Luiz, and I think he's a good replacement for him. He will allow us to move further up the pitch. He's good with the ball at his feet, so with all of that, I really can't complain. Of course, everybody will continue to talk about the price and all that kind of stuff, but we know why we spent that. And ultimately, if we still are able to get what we need to get done in this window, we won't be talking about the 50 million. And if he comes in and does a good job, we won't be talking about it. So we just have to take it, a day at a time. But ultimately, seeing it announced on the website it feels like we just ticked something else off of the list, doesn't it? So there's about 34 of you guys watching right now. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. You guys are so funny. Robert says, hi, wait, is the hair longer than previously? Yeah, so we're not going to have a conversation about how hair ends up a certain way, all that kind of stuff. We can talk about that another day. But yeah, so good signing. Let's take a look at the website and see what's going on there. Let's see. So yeah, can you guys see that? So yeah, Ben signs a long-term contract. I believe it's a 5-year +1, which is a nice long deal. And he seems excited, but I mean, nobody really looks like not excited, right, to sign a new deal, right? Or a new contract with a new team. You guys, give me 1 second. I just need to close the door. It's kind of loud. Give me 1 second. Okay, sorry, I'm here. So Ben White has joined us from Brighton. We all kind of know that. And let's see what he said. I mean, he's had a long career so far. I mean, well, he's moved up the ranks, which is pretty interesting. I think he played for like Peterborough or something at some point. So, I mean, his trajectory has been straight up, really, to go from, lower leagues to Leeds to Brighton. Well, he was already a Brighton player, but on loan at Leeds wanting him, not getting the move to Leeds, then at Brighton for a season, and now to Arsenal. So Edu has said, Ben has been a key target this summer. He has so many qualities, which makes us so excited he's joining. Ben's a young English player with a great future. He's very strong defensively, good on the ball with a great passing range. We're delighted Ben signed, and we look forward to him growing with us. Arteta said Ben was a top target for us, and it's great that we've completed his signing. Ben has been educated with two very good clubs, Brighton and Leeds, in recent seasons. He has benefited well from two very good coaching setups and has shown with both Brighton on loan and on loan at Leeds what a strong talent he is. Ben is an intelligent defender who is very controlled with the ball at his feet. I think that's a really, really important point. They keep saying that, so I think that was an important factor in why he's being recruited at Arsenal. And of course, he is still young, which is true. So his age and profile fits with what we are building here. Again, age profile, so young English player, good with the ball at his feet, can play multiple positions. I think that that's a key theme and what we're seeing with the players that are being brought into Arsenal and recruited. And we are all looking forward to Ben being essential to our future long-term plans. So, yeah. And of course, he'll be given the number 4 shirt, which has stirred up a lot of talk. Of course, I don't think Arsenal fans are ever going to let go the whole Saliba thing, because for some, I think it's a disappointment with a player that some of us were really excited to kind of see grow at Arsenal. And now maybe that opportunity has kind of maybe gone away, or has faded kind of to the background. And then for others, I feel like it's just a stick to beat the club with. He's 19 years old. We overpaid for him. Would it be nice if we could integrate him in and we can have that dream partnership of Gabriel and Saliba? Absolutely. But we got to let it go at this point, you guys. Like, I think giving Ben White the number 4 shirt, that's sending a message. You spend 50 million on a defender, he's going to get the number of his choice, especially if the player that has it is not at the club at the moment. I mean, Saliba basically got the same thing. He got the number 4 shirt from El Neni, who was on loan at the time. So I think that sends a big message to Ben White that he's a key signing for us. He's going to get the number that he's asking for, but not only that we're probably shifting away from Saliba. And I told you guys on other streams that I do think the writing is kind of there, that maybe Saliba is not in the long-term plans. And I feel like as long as Ben White works out, it's just not even, it's just something that just happened. Not everybody is going to work out. And with the Martinellis, the Sakas, the ESRs, the Gabriels, the Tierneys, we have a lot of young players that are working out. So if 2 in Saliba and Guendouzi have not, it's not a failure. Not everybody makes it. So I almost feel like we just kind of need to turn the page, focus on the players that are actually here, and be excited about the future with another young center back who is good in his own right. So for me, I'm kind of closing the Saliba chapter for now and putting the book to the side, and then see what the club does with him after his season-long loan at Marseille. But from a Ben White perspective, I am excited to see how he fits in at Arsenal, and I am excited to see him and Gabriel play together, although I feel starting out the season we'll see Marie and Ben White, which I am less excited about. So let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. Billy says Ben White looks sharp. Tawanda says Mr. White. Kyle says you can't say Saliba is not in the plan because he mostly plays on the left. And 20, he is 19, went on loan for 3 seasons before he was given a chance. I mean, I hear what you're saying. You're saying you can't say he's not in the plan, but he was bought under a different regime. He was bought like with Raul running things. So yeah, he can not be in the plans for Arteta and Edu. They don't have to, as much as we want them to make it work with Saliba because we just want it so badly, they don't have to make it work if it's not working. You bring in somebody like Ben White. Do you really think that Saliba is going to come in, somebody who clearly backs himself to start games, is going to want and sit behind, Ben White? No. And we've seen Arteta, he's very stringent in the way that he wants to play. He wants a left-footed center back on the left side. So even though Saliba does play primarily on the left, even Rob Holding primarily played on the left, and so now he's being played on the right because why? He's not left-footed. I personally would, if Saliba doesn't sign a new deal, which we don't even know if he'll be offered one, it's finished, and at this point, it's Raul and the team that he was working with spent too much on a player that wasn't deemed ready. I mean, before Arteta was even here, he wasn't ready, and I can't say that I believe that he's 100% ready, to step in and be that guy that's going to play for 38 games. So I love Saliba. I'm hoping that he has a good loan and he comes back in and we can find a way to use him or to integrate him into the team. But just even the murkiness of the club wanting him to take a loan in the Premier League and for him to go to France, just it doesn't look good. And I'm willing to let it go because if you just take out the fact that we are kind of projecting on a young player that we believe that's good and all this kind of stuff, I just kind of feel like, he's 19, it's not working out. Do we really need to live here forever? I don't think so. So that's just me. That's just me. I love Saliba and I really wanted it to work out, but I'm inching more towards if it doesn't, am I going to die? No. And I think the fan base just needs to, if you're using it to, I just think some people are using it as a constant stick to beat Arteta and Edu with, and they didn't spend 27 million on a 19-year-old. They didn't, and if you spend that amount on a 19-year-old, he should be ready to step in, and not everybody has said that he's ready to step in. Like neutrals have said that he seems still a little bit raw. And then there's maybe some questions about, does he even want to be at Arsenal? So yeah, it's just, he's 19. Like, why are we crying? You know what I mean? So, and I can understand if the 27 million came out of your pocket, but it didn't, So that's just my thing, right? So Ben White is now official. Let's back him. Let's get behind him. You know what I mean? Let's just get behind him. Let's see what happens. And we'll just roll on, right? So now let's talk a little bit about Granit Xhaka. Reports came out this morning from The Athletic that Arsenal are now looking to extend Granit Xhaka's contract. He has about 2 years left on his deal, and we want to extend his contract because Roma has not put in a suitable bid. What a doozy. What a doozy. I mean, we're thinking, the deal went from almost done to falling apart like that. And basically what I read is that the deal, well, basically from Sky Sports, the deal is off as of now. Some people are really running with it and saying it's done, it's not going to happen, all this kind of stuff. And I still kind of feel as though if Roma were to come up, then, because at the same time, have we seen Roma look for an alternative? You know what I mean? This is an important position for Jose Mourinho to fill. So I guess I just want to wait and see. If Granit puts pen to paper and Mourinho and co, start looking for a replacement, then I'll kind of think okay, yeah, this has some legs to it. And I know that it's The Athletic, David Ornstein, and Fabrizio Romano coming out with these reports, but we've also seen them be wrong, and some of them are quite close to the club, and they will put out things that the club tells them to put out. So for me, it's kind of wait and see before I completely panic. But will I panic if Granit gets a new contract and stays for another year? I would be disappointed, or another couple of years. I would be disappointed just because I feel we need to turn the page. We need to move on some of these pillars of influence and start going in a different direction. If you still have Jack at the club, he's still dictating play in the midfield. He's still the vocal leader on the pitch. And I just was kind of looking forward to a new chapter where the Tierney's and the Thomas parties of the world would start to take over and we'd start to see something else take shape. If Granit stays, he's the same guy, and we're still kind of running things through him. The last game that we watched, well, Granit preseason game, but Thomas was really dictating the play while El Neni kind of sat, and that's kind of what I'm looking for um, next season, because I think Thomas is a better player than Granit Xhaka. I think he's just the person that we need to move on to, like, if that makes sense. So of course I'd be disappointed. Um, I mean, I never really, I guess because I'd kind of already put it in my mind that he was going to be gone, I was, kind of already planning like to do other things, but now I'm going to put a halt to kind of my thoughts on new players coming in and all that kind of stuff, and if he stays, it is what it is, isn't it? Like, what are you going to do? But should Arsenal be just taking any bid for Granit, even though, I mean, if we had a certain number in mind, and we've been telling Roma that if there's a specific number that we need them to come up to, should we just concede and you know, take less, just to get him away from the club? I don't, for me, because Granit Xhaka is not somebody that I particularly want to move forward with, I think I would take less. But from an Arsenal perspective, from Edu and Arteta perspective, I think they rate Granit quite highly. And if they rate him very highly and they were only really selling him because he really wanted to go, not necessarily because they wanted to get rid, then I can see why they're not willing to just sell him for anything. And I just want to remind you guys that just a couple of weeks ago, when the fee that was being touted or, kind of reported on from Roma was like 12 million. An initial reaction from the fan base was, why can't we sell our players for more? Why are we always selling our players for cheap? We should not be selling our players for less than their value, right? This is somebody who starts every game for Arsenal. He's quite reliable. He's international captain and all that kind of stuff. So we shouldn't be selling him for less. So from that perspective, yeah, we shouldn't be just giving him away to Roma. We really, really shouldn't. But from a Jessica perspective, would I just take 12 million and run? Yes, because I just want to move on. Does that make sense? So there's what we want, and then there's what the club wants. And I also feel like we need to kind of change the narrative around Arsenal as well. We don't always want to be looked at as the team that is willing to take pennies for their players, especially somebody who starts every game for us. Our fringe players, because Granit is not a fringe player. He's like a pillar in our team, like whether we like it or not. So for me, it's kind of, I get why the club may be reluctant to just kind of give him away, but at the same time, I would love to see him move on, especially because I feel like he was quite vocal, about wanting to leave, and so to bring somebody back into the fold that was quite ready to go, like talking about the weather in Rome and all that kind of stuff. And, you're only as good as the players that you have in your team and all this kind of stuff. I had a good season and all that. Do I really want that guy back? Not really. So it's not a good feeling. It's really, really not. Like, to feel like the deal was really close, and now to be at the point where it's not even that he's staying, he's getting a new deal. It just feels like one step forward, three steps back. And so I was kind of looking forward to this morning talking about Bruno Guimaraes coming in, because that's somebody that I would be quite interested in coming to the club. But is there any point in really talking about it now if Granit's here? Because we know that player, a Bruno Guimaraes, a Ruben Neves, and Yves Bissouma would be coming in to replace him. So it's almost like, so, but I do tend to feel like this is still posturing until Granit puts pen to paper and I see Roma actively looking for other options. Then I still feel like it's posturing and there's still an opportunity for this deal to get done. Let's see. D7 says it's more important to replace Granite rather than just get rid of him without a replacement. Lord Gunnar says, yes, we should concede a lower fee. It's cheaper than giving him a new contract. Pharrell Williams says, you look beautiful today, Princess. Thank you. Thank you. Tam says, taking the piss. Shitty Xhaka remains. You guys, I really don't even know what taking the piss means, to be honest. I know it means something bad, but I don't think we have an equivalent to it in America. Dublin Gunnar says, I think Xhaka is still here at the start of the season, but he's gone by the end of the window. It just stinks, doesn't it? I do feel that he will be here to start the season because Roma, if they do come up on, they'll wait. They're going to wait into the very last minute. And the issue with that is if they wait to the very last minute, that makes it really difficult for us to replace. I do think we probably have some things in place with other players to make the deal go quickly if we do kind of get to those last final hours. But if Roma throw the money at us last minute, it's not a good feeling. It's just not a good feeling. I really felt, even though I do feel like it's posturing, it's just not a good feeling, especially because you just feel the anxiety of the fan base. And then you see people just really just flying off the handle. And it's not good. C. Wilder says, I think Xhaka is average. He has some exceptional traits, but cancels them out with some equally terrible traits. D7 says, when is the last time Chelsea, Man City, Man U, or Liverpool sold someone for a high price unless they were at the top of world-class level? So why are Arsenal fans worried about fees? Chelsea, Man City, sold someone for a high price unless they were... Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. I do feel like we should... There's taking a suitable fee and then giving away for peanuts. And I still feel like Roma has not come up enough to make it suitable, at least. I think they're trying to get something for nothing. And the worst part about it is, you see them spend the money on Rui Patricio. So they do have money. They're just choosing to spend it other places, and we can see that. So I do understand what you're saying. And personally, I'm not overly worried about fees. I'm more concerned about moving players on. The club needs to be worried about the fees. I just think the fan base tends to flip-flop a lot. 1 minute it's, why are we selling him for so little? And then the next minute is, why are we not just getting him off the books? So where do we land here? Robert says negotiating tactics with Roma, most likely, hopefully. Olivier says he has the acceleration of a diesel truck. That's not nice. S says Xhaka was twerking for Roma as well. I mean, he was. It's quite embarrassing if he comes back, for everybody, because he was vocal about leaving. You know what I mean? He was not shy. I think he was confident about leaving. Spuds Ali says, how big do you think Arsenal's fan base is in America? It's very big. But here, the only teams that we tend to hear about are Liverpool, Manchester United, and Arsenal, to be honest, in America at the moment. S says, I'd sell Xhaka for 15 and buy Basuma for 40. Yeah. I mean, I would sell him for pretty much anything if it was me, but I'm not the club, Borat says Bruno Guimaraes or someone like Dennis Zakaria. I'm not a big fan of Zakaria or Zachariah or however you say his name. I'm not a fan of his. I don't like the player. I don't. I wouldn't want him at the club. And I also think there's huge concerns over his knees. I think they're pretty much gone, so for me, Zachariah is a no-go. I would prefer Basuma if you're looking for somebody in that mold, but even Zachariah is just not, he just doesn't do it for me. But Bruno Guimaraes is somebody that I'd be really interested to come into the club. I think he fits he ticks all the boxes, and then he has a very high ceiling as well. And he does the parts that we want, the tackling, the tracking back, the physical aspect of what you want in a CDM, but he also has the ball progression aspects as well, which is something that we need. So, but when it comes to Zachariah, when I just watch him, maybe his statistics are better, but from an eye test perspective, he's just not somebody that I'm really drawn to. I think he's overrated. DB says, who are our dream signings now if Xhaka stays? So, I mean, that's a really good question. If Granit does stay, then that means that we're not spending 40 billion on a replacement, which I would assume that means you go big on an attacking midfielder and you do get your right back. At that point, you have to get those players in to make that the window feel like it makes sense. Because going into next season with Thomas Partey, Granit Xhaka, and ESR as your midfield, you have not upgraded the midfield at all. That is a midfield that keeps you at 8th place. It just is. Because you haven't actually improved it at all. So at that point, you have to bring in a top attacking midfielder. I would say then you throw the money at Leicester and go get Maddison. And you have to get a right back. And that's what would have to happen. So, I mean, would you guys prefer that? Would you be okay with Granit Xhaka staying if you knew you were going to get a top right back and a really good attacking midfielder like Maddison? So yeah. S says Smith Rowe and Partey can compete for top board. Xhaka can't. It's the same midfield that you had last season, and that midfield for me is the biggest issue in the team. It's just not good enough. It's not, when you look at the top midfields in the league, it doesn't compete. It's not good enough. So I think you have to upgrade on Xhaka. And if you don't upgrade on Xhaka, then you need to bring in an attacking midfielder that's going to get you the goals and assists that's required. One of those positions needs to be hugely upgraded, if not both. And so, yeah. Yeah. Reggie says, Jess, taking the piss is equivalent of they're just effing with you. Okay, got it. Let's see. Olivier says Odegaard deal feels closer and closer. Maybe the thing with the Odegaard thing is it actually a permanent deal? I read that he wants another loan. If Odegaard wants to come to Arsenal to train a little bit more until he's ready to go to Real Madrid, I don't want him. We need a permanent solution. I don't think we should be relying on loanees because they're not committed to us, so they give committed effort. And so for me, and I don't want next summer for us to be having this conversation again. So unless it's a permanent deal for Odegaard, I wouldn't be interested in it. But also, if Granit stays, I think you go all in for James Maddison. There's no reason to go for a lesser option if you're going to keep, because again, that's the same midfield that we had, isn't it? It's Granit Xhaka, Odegaard, and Thomas. And that just is not good enough. So for me, I would say you have to go all in on Maddison, or we have to start asking huge questions because it's just not good enough. Our midfield is our biggest hang up. It just is. Attacking wise, I think you can get away with Aubameyang, Lacazette, Emile Smith Rowe in some instances, Martinelli, Saka, Pepe. I don't think that's necessarily our issue. I feel our midfield is really holding us back, and a key part of that midfield is Granit Xhaka. And if you don't do anything with him, you got to get a good attacking midfielder, top level. Rancid says, good evening to you as well, even though, it's 9:00 in the morning for me. Still early. S says, would you take Rodri over Xhaka? We need a different profile. Rodri to me is quite similar in the way that Granit is, in that unless you have top level technical players that dominate the ball 90% of the time, 95% of the time, Rodri is a liability in transition because he's very slow and he's quite immobile as well. So Rodri is not somebody that I particularly like. He's not somebody that I would want at Arsenal, although I do think he's a good player. So Rodri is just not somebody he's not somebody that I would want either. I really feel like we need somebody closer to a Bruno Guimaraes or a Basuma to really transform us and make us very difficult on transition. We're really good on when we break up play, when we're able to nick the ball off of somebody and then go with speed in the other direction and create a number advantage in the offensive third, like, or, going forward. I think that's where we really are much better. Right now, I don't think we're good enough to be a purely possession-based team. And I think a lot of our best players are good players on transition: Saka, Pepe, Aubameyang, Thomas. So I feel like if we fed into that a little bit more and brought in midfielders that could actually break up play a lot more, we'd be a lot more dangerous. But unless you are Man City and you're dominating possession for 99% of the game, players like Xhaka, like Ruben Neves, like Rodri will hold you back because they're just not good on transition. They're just not good on transition. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, again, it's not a good feeling, but I still feel like Granit will go. I'm hoping, New Dawn Game says, "Oh, I haven't seen you in a while. I just traveled 40 minutes for a job interview, but when I got there, they said they had given the wrong address and called it off. At least I get to watch this on the tube and join in on the fun." Oh no, that sounds terrible. They'd given the wrong address? What? How does that happen? That's so crazy. Robert says, "It's not about criticizing Xhaka. He clearly is a person who can be a good player if he chooses to be. Does he want to commit to Arsenal, though?" I mean, he's been very vocal about wanting to move on. So I have a hard time believing that we could convince him to signing a new deal when the deal with Roma is so close, or it was so close. I mean, he was at the point where he was willing to forego some of his bonuses and stuff like that, so it just feels like maybe if we just gave a little, we could get this done, but I don't think the club wants to. S says, "Basuma is so clear of Bruno Guimaraes, by the way. I'd rather we sign Basuma than him." I'm not sure if he's so clear. The only difference, in my opinion, to Bruno and Basuma is that Basuma can do it in the Premier League, but Basuma also came from Ligue 1 and was able to transition quite seamlessly, and I feel like Bruno Guimaraes could do the same thing. If you go and you look at the differences between the two players, Basuma is somebody who played a lot more like Bruno Guimaraes when he was in Ligue 1, but now that he's at Brighton, and Brighton's has a very clear system where he has a very clear role, the progressive parts of his game is not as prominent as it is with Bruno Guimaraes now at Lyon. You got to see this guy's stats. I mean, the guy is he's very well-rounded, and we need less specialists and more well-rounded players. Not saying Basuma is not. So I would say this so clear of Bruno. I would like to know what makes you think that he is so clear, because for me, it's not so clear. The only thing that I know about Basuma that I don't know about Bruno is, can he do it in the Premier League? But in terms of the profile, Bruno's profile is exactly what we need, to be honest. The only thing I will say about Bruno Guimaraes is that he needs to work on his shooting. His shooting is absolutely atrocious. And then you also have to think about the aspect, which is still unclear, that we're not 100% sure whether or not Basuma will be gone for AFCON, and we know Bruno Guimaraes would not, so we wouldn't have to change our midfield that much. You can easily play Bruno and Lokonga together in that midfield in Thomas's absence. So that's something else you have to think about as well. Tawanda says, "I haven't heard anything concrete on Torreira's exit. He might be staying." I mean, I feel like he'll be loaned out again. I don't think he'll come back. I feel like even if he doesn't get a permanent move, we won't want him back at the Emirates, just because when you have a player that's very vocal about not wanting to be at the club, I feel like it's not you don't want anybody there that doesn't want to be there. And I don't think a Torreira that's not happy at being at Arsenal is not a plus for us. He's kind of a wear all of his emotions on his sleeve type of player, and you don't really want him there if he's not feeling it, do you? Eric says, y'all forget Basuma Arsenal is not going to go for him. Bruno is exactly what we need. Olivier says Bruno would be great, but Basuma fits in right away. He knows some of our players for mental. I mean, yeah, again, I would take either player. They're both an upgrade and in a profile that would transform our midfield and make us harder to beat. It would make us better on transition, and it would make us a little bit more modern. Xhaka is too much of a specialist for me, and we have too many specialists in our team. Xhaka, David Luiz was quite a specialist, where they're really good in certain things. And I think somebody said this in the chat. I brought it up on the screen. They're really good in certain aspects. They're specialists, like top level in certain things, but their flaws really just make it so difficult for you to really get the most out of them unless you're playing in a specific way. I feel like Aubameyang also falls into that category. So when you're most experienced, players, some of your pillars of your team are such specialists, it really holds you back. So if you bring in somebody like a Bruno Guimaraes, who's kind of really good at everything, all you have to hope is that he adapts. That's pretty much it, So I would like to see him come in. But again, Granit would have to go, wouldn't he? And he's not gone yet. No, So let's see. Neil says, Xhaka will go eventually. I think it's just mind games to get Roma to cough up the money we want. That's where I kind of am. I'm about 70%. That's what it is. 30%. He will end up staying. Rydog says, I would rather hold out longer to see if our business can convince Locatelli. He's the perfect fit. Rather hold out longer to see if our business can convince Locatelli. I don't think anything can convince him, to be honest. I think he'd almost stay at Sassuolo before he came to Arsenal. I know a lot of people really like Locatelli. He's not the player that I would want, to be honest. I do think he's really good. Does that kind of make sense, you guys? Like that sometimes you can see a player is really good, but the profile is not what you would want. So that's why you don't really want the player here. It's not that I don't rate him. I don't like the profile. And so for me, I'm totally okay with us losing out on this player, but I don't think anything would convince him, Rydog. I really don't. I think he's hell bent on going to Juventus, and I think they'll get some sort of deal done. Let's see. No, it's not that I just want somebody to be happy here. It's just I actually am not like, oh, well, if we have to convince him, it's a big deal. I'm just stating the facts that he wants to go to Juventus, and that's probably what's going to happen. I don't think we can convince him because he wants so badly to go to Juventus. You know what I mean? Like, so it's not about, I just want them to be happy here. Even with Torreira, it's like, yeah, I'd prefer, because the thing with Torreira is that when he's not happy, it's obvious, and so I think in some instances he would be a liability because he's already said if he's not starting, he's basically, I mean, him not playing sent him to therapy. Do you see him starting next to Thomas Partey? No. So it's not about just being happy at Arsenal. The profile for you is amazing. The profile for me is not. And it's just a difference. We all have our own opinions, and you can't just assume that because you think that the profile is perfect that I would, and that there's some other alternative reason why I don't want him. It literally just comes down to the fact that the deep lying playmaker that's not necessarily very quick, that goes into challenge. I mean, half of his compilation is him tackling, which leads me to believe that he's a last-ditch tackler because he can't really keep up with play because he's not particularly quick. So I prefer to move away from the Xhaka profile, which Locatelli is a better version of Xhaka, to something a little bit more well-rounded, somebody that can be good in transition and that's a little bit quicker and sprintier and more aggressive. That's just me. So it's not really about him wanting to be here. But yeah, at the bare minimum, you would want somebody to actually want to be here, wouldn't you? Matt G says, hey, Jess, really good news about Ben White. Yes, I am excited, especially because now I don't have to hear, where's the announcement? You know? Neil says, as long as Juventus are showing an interest, Locatelli will always choose them, even if we offer him more wages. He is a Juventus fan. I mean, there's just some players that they feel like there's an opportunity and they will go there. Like, you know what I mean? So it's just a preference thing. It's just a preference thing. I mean, if he came, it's not like I would be like he's horrible, because he's not. He's a really good player. We would need to play a 4-3-3, which means that we would have to bring in another player that's good, suitable for that system. And I'm not sure we have the person. I'm not sure we have that third midfielder, your Renato Sanchez, your Husamawa. We don't have those players as of yet. And I don't really see, like Emile Smith-Rowe as the third midfielder. I still think he's a 10 at the moment, so that's just me, Mason Clark, are you American? Yes, I am. Let's see. Greg B says, why would people think Xhaka would even sign a new deal as he wants to lead the club now? I don't know. We just have to see what happens, don't we? We just have to see. S says, if we keep Xhaka this season and get a 10, Odegaard or Madison, and your ideal right back, do you think we can compete for top 4? If we keep Xhaka this season and get a 10, Odegaard or Madison, and your ideal right back, do you think we can compete for top 4? No, because Granit Xhaka, he holds Thomas back for me. And with him dictating play, I feel like you have to play in a certain way. I think that's the one that has to change. I still feel like it would hold us back just a little bit. So I would say that, yes, it would be an improvement, but that central midfielder position, that one has to be upgraded upon, in my opinion. So that's just me. It would be better. It's something about that position that I feel like is holding Thomas back. Matthew Hudson says, isn't that the fun of these chats? Everyone believes that they're right and the managers. I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, you guys, like, yes, I watch a lot of football. I love it. I do try to study, but I'm still a fan. Like, sometimes my opinions are based on agendas and biases and emotions and reactions and all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate everybody's perspectives in here. And while we're in these chats, of course, we're all experts, aren't we? So, yeah. But yeah, you guys, this was going to be a short one because I do have to attend to some business for the rest of today. But today is Friday, so I will come back tomorrow. I'll come back tomorrow and see what the news is, and we'll do another maybe like live Q&A and stuff and see if I can get some of the guys to come on. But for the Chelsea game, we will be doing instant reaction, for that immediately following the game, and a Twitter space before the game to talk about the lineup. So make sure you guys are tuned in for that. There's 184 of you guys watching right now. Like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk to you guys later. Yeah, we'll do Q&A tomorrow, you guys. I see some questions, so that I haven't gotten a chance to answer. So yeah, but I'll talk to you guys later, okay? Bye, y'all. Thank you.